Hello, hello, hello. My name is Miss Jai, and I am really excited to be here today for our interview for Ask Miss Jai Live with one of my besties, Knomi.
Hi.
A little bit about Ask Miss Jai Live. Please stick around. We're going to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about our experiences. Nomi's going to share a little bit about their experience and what they do. And I don't want to give too much away. I'm really excited about it. So please stick around and enjoy the interview with us. Ask Miss Jai Live got started as a way to give voice to trans and non-binary people in our communities, as well as to help answer questions for physicians who are wanting to be more gender affirming in their care. And in the ways that they are treating us on our daily basis. So I'm really excited for us to be here. Please stick around. If you are joining our call live, please put a hashtag live in the chat. You can also ask questions of Knomi and myself during this time, or just say hello or give us shout outs. That'd be really lovely as well. Yeah, so please feel free to put a hashtag live. If you're catching this on the replay, go ahead and put hashtag replay and share in the comments what you found to be the most helpful or what you would like to hear more about. So thank you, Knomi, so much for letting me intrude in your space.
We're here.
Would you mind starting us off just telling us a little bit about yourself, your name and your pronouns, but also a little bit about yourself and the things that are important to you? And please speak up because we had all sorts of technical difficulties to start.
Sure. Also, I just wanted to say sorry in advance if my cats come up and just saying hello to everybody because they like to do that. My name is Knomi Flores. I'm 35, or almost. I'm 35 today, actually.
Yes, happy birthday! Come on,
35
queen.
today. What was your question again?
tell me about yourself.
So I'm a native Tucsonan, as you know. I'm an artist. I'm a dancer, a painter. I guess you could just say a creator, a creative type. I've done a lot of things around the community and like drag and sex work advocation and all kinds of fun things.
Been around and about.
Been around, about, and around again.
And around. And what pronouns do you use?
I use she, her.
She, her. Okay.
But any pronouns as long as they're respectful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So a good place. So I have like notes here and questions that I wrote down, but we'll also like freestyle just a little bit as well. So why don't we start with, I would love to hear what being trans means to you.
Being trans to me, it's always a weird thing to think about.
Yeah.
Considering the journey is like a weird but lovely twist and turnies type thing. But I don't know. I think trans is a way of being, a way of living, or rather a way life comes through my vessel.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And how does that come out in your art, in your drag artistry, in the things that you do creatively?
I think that it reflects my inner dialogue a lot. So whenever I'm in, like for instance, when I was doing drag, like a lot of what I was feeling inside would come out in my performances or in the way I dressed or the way I wanted to present myself at the time. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. These little things.
You're welcome.
And can you share a little bit with us, like what does transition look like for you? Because it's different for everybody. And so what has transition meant for you and what does that look like for you? And yeah.
Well, my transition right now in this period of my life is about my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Strictly because I tried transitioning when I was in my 20s, my mid-20s, and I really just was not able to mentally handle all of it for myself, and I was in another city that I wasn't, familiar with, so it was kind of hard. But now it's more about like, again, trans to me is like life expressing itself through me. And so when I block that, that flow, my mental health just starts to deplete, and I go into this like depressive state, and and that happens naturally anyway, but like transitioning helps definitely figure out how I handle depression and those certain mental situations, or any situation really, the way I feel like life, the universe, my transness wants me to. Yeah.
And you mentioned a little bit this like this like ebb and flow as well. Can you share a little bit more around what you mean by like the ebb and flow over time, like what you've tried transition wise, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you? Because I think a lot of providers, I'm shaking the table a lot, sorry everyone. I think a lot of providers who and just a lot of people who don't really understand transness might assume that there's like you start at one place and you stop at somewhere else. So can you share a little bit more about what a transition ebb and flow has looked like for you?
I actually used to think it was the same. You start at A, you go to B, and then you go to C. And like, as I talked to you about like, oh, I'm transitioning now for my mental health, but I'm also talking about how I transitioned earlier in my life and how those things kind of, it's non-linear. Like things will come back and forth and around and in around. So like the ebb and flow state really is being able to understand where exactly you are. Are you thinking about your past self? Are you thinking about your future self? Are you thinking about a self that could have been or would be? Something like that.
All those pieces.
Yeah. Because we are all those pieces.
Yeah. They all make up our identities.
Right.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. You had mentioned also that part of the work that you've done is sex work decriminalization and advocacy around sex work. Can you speak a little bit to that, some of the things that you've done and just what that looks like for you?
Well, I personally haven't done like any of the legalizing stuff or any of the like writing, our government or whatever, but I have been a supporting member. I've done, I try to help in ways that I am proficient at. And so like I'll do a lot of performance art geared towards like talking about sex work and what sex work is and what it means to people and what it means to people and their families, because sex workers have families and they're just normal human beings trying to learn a living.
Live their lives. Yeah. Just like anyone else who's an entrepreneur.
You're welcome.
Can you, then I feel like this is an appropriate question, but like, can you share a little bit what sex work means to you and like how that has informed the way that you present art and the work that you do and those sorts of pieces as well?
Well, it's meant different things to me at different times. I've had really like amazing experiences with it. I've had really, can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
Shitty experiences with it. I mean, first and foremost, it's like the freedom. Like, this is my body. This is what I choose to do with my body. And yeah, I think that we should be able to make choices about our own bodies. I think we should have as much information available to us to make informed decisions about our bodies and what we can and can't or should and shouldn't, or what would be the healthiest way to do things for our bodies.
Yeah. Where were you getting information, or where would you recommend folks get information around like bodily autonomy and the ways that we can take care of ourselves?
The thing is, you can find anything you need on YouTube For real. For real. I mean, if you do the research and you take time, I used to get a lot of my information from you, actually, because we've known each other for a long time, and I definitely trust your education and the experiences that you've brought to the table. So thank you, girl.
It helps to have a sexual health educator as a friend.
Let me tell you. Hi, Gouda. Sorry, my cat. But again, like, there's so much literature out there. Just kind of know where it's coming from, and that's probably the most important thing. Is like, okay, if I'm going to read this, I need to know who's provided this information.
Yeah, absolutely. So pivoting just a little bit, you'd mentioned health before, mental health specifically, and I'm wondering, what are the most important like health things that you're focusing on for yourself right now?
In the ways of mental,
It could be in any kind of health thing. Yeah.
Mind, body, spirit.
Mind, body, spirit.
I feel like they work in tandem with each other. So like, if I'm working on my mental health, that's one part of the being that I need to work on. And then, so like right now I'm doing, I did talk therapy for about 2 years, and that was really great. In the beginning, it was a little bit more frequent, and then it started to become less frequent, and then I stopped for a little while, and then I'm actually going into EMDR starting on the 30th.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm not sure if it's gonna work for me, but my attitude towards these kind of things is like, try it out. Try it. Don't. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. I didn't think talk therapy was for me, and it got me out of like some pretty sticky, bad places. And then with that comes into tandem with my body. I don't eat healthy by any means, not in like a crazy way, but I do try to like make home meals every day. I try to sit with myself and sit with what I'm making, and mindfulness is what they call it. And you think about like where this food comes from and what it's going to do for your body. And then with that, I go to the gym probably 3 or 4 times a week. Yeah.
How has it been going to a gym?
For me, it was nerve-wracking at first, but not because of like identity stuff. It was just I didn't know how to do shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like nervousness that you're going to do something incorrect.
Correct. Yeah. The only thing that had anything to do with identity when it comes to the gym is like there always is that in the back of the mind, like, I'm a trans person. I present myself, in a way that people know that I'm trans or can guess that I'm trans. And I just have to remind myself that for me, I'm doing this for my body. I'm not doing this to satisfy somebody else's like view of their outer world. Like I'm if we go into metaphysical stuff, like if we're all one, you're seeing me through something outside of yourself that's actually inside of you. So it's not my place to like worry about what you're thinking about me, which is hard to do. Yeah, which is extremely hard to do. But I think that my physical, mental, and spiritual health outweighs those potential risks or what could be. Yeah,
absolutely. So you mentioned mind, you mentioned bodies. What are some of the things that you're doing for your spiritual health?
So I do a lot of spiritual research. I love mythologies, and I wouldn't say I love religion, but I love what they represent,
Mm.
not kind of how they're taught, but just like what they are and what they're supposed to mean. Kind of just like a beautiful way to tell a story about our existence.
Mm.
And that's, clearly up to, our own perception of how we intake things and process them. But I also do a little tarot. I'm not very good at it, but I do a lot of that for myself. I go out into nature as much as I possibly can.
Nice. How would you say? Do you feel like as you've been exploring these things for yourself, so gym, exploring spiritual side, exploring the mental health work, going to therapy, figuring out what works for you, as you've been sort of exploring these, do you feel like that there have been any? Is there any advice that you would give to yourself when you were a younger self around these pieces to just prepare yourself for what the process is going to look like?
I probably would say something about like maybe just trying to work on the fear factor as much as you can, because anything new can be really, really scary, and that's kind of what stopped me in my journey in health. Was I built up all these things in my mind about like what the doctor was going to say or what they weren't going to say, or how I was going to be in those situations. And the thing is, for me, I just had to do it. And so I guess I would say to myself, like, don't be afraid to try, and don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to adjust. And then, also going along with my mental and all that stuff, like I also practice like harm reduction stuff. So like, and that can look like a lot of things in my life. So it's not all health and love and peace and kumbaya. It's like a lot of deep stuff, pain, anger, sadness,
Yeah, really giving yourself the opportunity to like feel all the human emotions.
You have to. You can't experience joy and elation and all those things if you're not experiencing the other part of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think we as trans people are taught to make our lives as manageable as possible. And that really takes us to like levels of non dealing with emotions. That was my experience anyway. Like, just keep your emotions out of it, or just don't feel them, and just keep going. But that doesn't help.
Yeah.
Doesn't help long term.
Yeah. Would you say that that it's almost like there's this expectation to be like the perfect trans person?
Absolutely. And I think that's because of just how transness is fed to us through like media, or even through our like real life experiences, like trans performers and the glamorification of transness, or and again, like, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to transness or trans being or gender.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of pieces are going to be different from body to body as well, right? Like one person's body might take up hormones in a very different way than another person's body does.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I hear that around the expectation that we see in media sometimes is like, oh, well, you start on hormones and you're feminine like immediately, and like the perception is that these changes happen overnight. And that's just not the case for a lot of people.
And I think a lot of people too just think, okay, you transition, you're changing your outer shell, then you start to feel better. And that's not the way it is at all. Like, it's, for me anyway, it has changed the way I think, the way I feel, even the way I dream. Like, it changes so much. And I feel like it undoes like a lot of that programming that we're taught when we're younger.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, like, even though our outer shell might be changing, that there are still things internally that we're going to have to work on, and things that we're going to just need to work through. And your vulnerability around talking around the ways that you're currently engaging in health for yourself. Because I think one of the questions that comes up a lot when I'm providing like support to providers and whatnot is they're seeing trans people as either transition, like they're like, oh, well, if I'm helping trans people, it's because they're interested in transitioning, or they're seeing trans people and they're saying sexual health. So like those are the two bucket categories that
That's
folks
been
fall
my
into.
experience.
Yeah. And so I really appreciate you talking about the variety of ways that you're working on your health, because I think that helps us to better understand us collectively, better understand that as holistic people, we have holistic health needs as well, beyond just sexual health and transition.
Right. And I think, moving, it's been, I don't know, like 40 years since the HIV/AIDS epidemic, something like that. And we're like, mainstream is still kind of holding on to that, like queerness, disease, high risk. That's what I've been told numerous times when it comes to like being doing like intake for mental health stuff or physical health stuff. Like, there is this emphasis almost on like, oh, you're a trans or you're a queer person or you're gay or whatever. How many sexual partners do you have?
It's like jumping to sexual health.
Right. It's always like, that's the first thing that happens. And I'm just like, what does that have to do with my hormones right now? Or what does that have to do with me getting EMDR? What does that have to do with, I get it that, you need the profile, because it helps. But like, we're holistic, we're human, we're beings, and to be treated. And so I don't think it's necessarily like a malicious thing or anything like that. It's literally all like information based, like logic.
Yeah.
And if transition has taught me anything, you can't just do things by number. Like it's not the whole picture.
Yeah. Because even as you said, it's not linear. So you can't just follow a flow chart and be like, okay, well, we've checked all the boxes. Right. We've done all the pieces.
Right.
I also don't think that that's uncommon, that folks will see transness, see queerness in their patients or their clients and jump to sexual health.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate you bringing up that, like, that might not be the goal of what you're there to get EMDR. You're there to work on other pieces. And really, like,
oh, my gallbladder.
Like providers can take your lead as to what your health concerns are. Yeah. Because the other thing is that I feel like, and you and I have known each other for a very long time, I kind of feel like we understand what our sexual health risks are. We understand like the sexual health aspect pieces.
And I think that's because of our community. Like, our community had to do what it had to do to keep our community alive. Yeah. Whereas, our straight counterparts, our rich counterparts had access to drugs, had access to good healthcare. Yeah. And so, when I think those areas start to see queer communities, be advocates for health and sexual health like that, they think that's what they need to be doing. And it's like, well, that's what we do for ourselves, but what are you here for? What are you bringing to the table? Yeah.
How can you complement what we're already doing and what we already know how to do better? Yeah. Because I don't know if this has been your experience, but like I feel like sometimes when we have a pretty good understanding of a specific area of health, it becomes really clear when a provider doesn't.
Right.
Like,
Which makes the experience really uneven in
Yeah.
like a weird way. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to folks to get their expertise,
Right.
but not to like go down these other avenues of the stereotype of what trans people need for their health.
Yeah. But I also I also just want to say, like, I think that it is a two-way street, just like any relationship. And I think that because of our queerness and the resources that our community provides us, I think being I think being assertive in your own ways that you want to be cared for is how you meet the provider halfway. They might not always meet you there, but at least you're doing what you need to do to say, you know what, this is exactly what I'm here for. And I don't think that just applies to trans or queer people. I think any patient should really take their advocacy to like high levels so that they know exactly what you want.
And like owning their health in that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm assuming it's not all like, it's all been really challenging. So are there instances that you felt really supported by health providers, or ways that you like, how have you felt supported in these environments as you've been getting support in mental health and physical health, all these other pieces?
Well, I've had, I don't know, I couldn't say if I had like a 50-50, like good, bad experience. I've just had experience at this point. At this point in my journey, I look back and say, okay, these are just the experiences that I had.
I gotcha.
But like, like when I started transitioning this time, I had a doctor who, like, you know, to me, I was going through a lot, and I was trying to get pick myself up and put myself back together, and I was really emotional, like really, really, really emotional, and I went to her and I would break down in her office, and at that point I didn't really cry all that much. So for me to break down in that office, like, I received like this coldness from this provider, which, looking back on it now, like, I know as a former healthcare provider, you have to build up kind of a callus to kind of see patients day in and day out. But I think there is a way for providers to be empathetic, but also constructive. And, you know, I wasn't looking for a shoulder to cry on, but I definitely needed something. And then, so I advocated for myself, and I got a new PCP. And, you know, went in there, same thing, broke down. She didn't give me this coldness. She gave me this, I want to help you, you know, and that didn't look like, let me hold your hand. It looked like, let me help you, allow me to help you. So like, having that openness as a provider is really like a great thing to have.
Do you feel like this was a person who was standing beside you as opposed to like doing for you?
Yes. And then that was my experience with talk therapy. I didn't feel like, I've had therapists before where you can tell they're just sitting there, they're analyzing you, and they're referring back to the MDR-5 or whatever the
DSM.
The DSM-5, in their minds, and like, how do I? But I did manage to get a therapist who I knew exactly what they were doing. I knew exactly that they were there to help guide me through my own mind, if that makes any sense. And so that was like, and it wasn't always pretty, you know, it wasn't always easy. And then you have some that are just analyzing the shit out of you because you're trans, just specifically because you're trans. How do I deal with this person I see that's in front of me?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have a partner who is a vet, and even he has had, like, as the patients, like, caretakers or the owners, like, he hasn't had enough experience or knowledge to understand, like, how am I supposed to address this person, or, and we're working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that in those instances, it's almost like folks become hyper focused on your transness?
Yes.
And sort of like ignore any other thing?
Yes. And I think as a trans person, I do that as well in those situations, which doesn't really help the other try to understand a little,
Yeah.
So
again, like a good opportunity for a provider to let you take the lead around what you want to discuss.
Yes, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if you could have 3 pieces that you would want providers to walk away from our conversation, like remembering or keeping in the forefront of their mind the next time that they're sitting in an appointment with anyone, but especially with members of our community, what things would you say, like, keep these things at the forefront of your mind when you're talking to your trans patients or clients?
One would be save the sex and the sexual health part, close to last. If that's not what they're there for, that's number one, because that's really off-putting.
Yeah.
2, just keep in mind that, like, we're people, and even though this is a conversation around trans people and healthcare providers, like, even cis het people it's not one size fit all. So, like, just keep in mind that we're the same, and don't tailor your care towards this person based on what you see. And then 3rd, have empathy, but also know what you're doing, like, when it comes to handling people who need the care.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those. The final question, this is a question I like to ask anyone who's on Ask Miss Jai, is what brings you joy?
My cats bring me joy right now. Like, different parts of my life come different parts of joy, I've been in a relationship for 4 months now after 10 years of not being in a relationship. So that's bringing me a lot of joy right now. My nieces and my nephews are bringing me a lot of joy right now. My sister's building and rebuilding connections with people I love really give me a lot of joy. The gym gives me joy. There's lots of joy in my life right now.
Good. That makes me really happy to hear. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for sitting down and chatting with me. I love you so much, and I'm so glad we got a chance to sit down and talk in this way as well. For anyone who's watching, for folks who joined today, thank you so much. Again, if you're watching live, please put a hashtag live in the chat. If you're catching this on the replay, go ahead and put a hashtag replay. Please let me know what you found most interesting, what you'd like to hear more about. Again, a big thank you and a big amount of gratitude to Knomi for being on the show tonight. And as always, to folks who are watching at home or work or wherever you're watching, probably pooping. Anyone who's watching, thank you again for being here and for investing in the health and well-being of trans and non-binary people. Until next time, goodbye.